boy, it's time once again for Orange Pill Podcast here in San Salvador, El Salvador, with Max and Stacy. Stacy.
Hey, you know what? I wrote the best tweet of my life, and it's going to be the highest engagement tweet of my life. When the author of the Bitcoin Standard met the leader of Bitcoin country, great things were bound to happen. We are excited to announce that Saifedean is joining us as economic advisor to the National Bitcoin Office of El Salvador. Welcome to the winning team, Dr. Amus.
Yeah, it's well, I think it's going to get 1 million views on Twitter. So it's like gone viral. You know, the Saifedean Amus here in El Salvador meeting with the president with his book, The Bitcoin Standard, and his new book, Economic Principles, is really catching storm, and he's joining the Bitcoin office as an advisor. And people on the social media, on Twitter, were like, yeah, this is fantastic. You're attracting the best talent. This is becoming the magnet of maximalism, of super excellence. And I think people are starting to catch on.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that we keep on aiming for, is the best and the brightest. Yeah. So this obviously qualifies, like we went for the very top. And these are, you know, the results are starting to pour in that we've spent 18 months on. Some of these things like Fold, you know, I had first started reaching out to them back in March of 2022. Maybe it was even February, late February, early March, asking Will Reeves to come move here, to move his company here. And finally, it's happened. That also was announced in the past 2 weeks, since we took a little hiatus when we went to the United States and we went to the Bitcoin 2023 conference. We'll talk about that. But, you know, we had a huge announcement at the Bitcoin 2023 conference, which was that Strike is moving here as well. So these are the things we've been working. This is the proof of work. Remember, I keep on telling people that they're going to see a lot of proof of us working, having worked in 2022 during the bear market while everybody else was like, you know, panicked, and all those shitcoins were collapsing.
Yeah, Saifedean was definitely, I think, wonderstruck by how positive things are here. Because people who come here, you know, they make that comment that, you know, where I'm coming from, typically the US or Canada, everyone's kind of depressed and things are kind of falling apart. And I come to El Salvador and it's like things are on upbeat. People are, you know, seem to be like everything's happening. And so there's a very stark contrast there. And I think, you know, in their eyes, you see it. They're like, what? I didn't know this was even possible anymore in this crazy world. But definitely Saifedean, I think, got that impression too, that things are very positive here. And I got a chance to listen to his lecture he did at Cuba Plus. And which, of course, is that effort to bring in coders and do education and to make a homegrown coding. I have a coder shirt on to celebrate technical excellence. I don't know if people can read it.
There are only 10 types of people in the world: those who understand binary and those who don't.
Yeah, so it's a nerdy joke, which I didn't get at first because
I had to explain it to you.
I read it as 10, of course, but of course it's a 1 and a 0. Ha ha ha! You nerds are so funny. But nevertheless, so Saifedean was having a great time. And but as you point out, the folks that we've been talking to for a while, like Fold with Will Reeves, we've known him for years. Saifedean Amus, we've known him for 12 years.
Yeah, but again, this is the thing, is I want people to understand, and I kind of caused a stir at the Bitcoin conference when I said that there would be only one hyper-Bitcoinized country, and that would be El Salvador, because there's only one President Bukele, and therefore nobody else could do the same, because he would attract the best and the brightest. So the first mover advantage is real. So once you have the best and the brightest, once you have the best Bitcoin companies like Fold, like Strike, once you have the best, you know, economic advisors like Max and Stacy, and also Saifedean Amus now, like once you have all those best people here, once you have like the best securities firm, Bitfinex Securities, like we have all the best. So the rest are going to end up, you know, seeking shitcoins, basically.
Yeah, in the technology business, or in business, right, they refer to the moat.
Yes,
right? We have an unassailable moat.
That's it.
Like what is it about you, this company, that no other company is going to be able to approach in its level of excellence, because you've got this unassailable moat. And I think El Salvador has that moat at this point, because you've got the best people coming here. Max and Stacy are here. President, of course, got orange pilled a while ago, and he just keeps running with it, and every week coming up with something new that's fantastic to help the country. And that first mover advantage is definitely real.
Yeah, and however, on top of that, I also mentioned there is kind of a party atmosphere to a lot of these conferences, and I mentioned that President Bukele makes it look very easy because he is an amazing leader. So that's the deceptive thing, is people just think you just wave your hand and everything is sorted. But it's taken a lot of work. It took a lot of work just to get that one company here. It took a lot of work to put the Cubo Plus thing together. It didn't just magically appear. It took almost a year to assemble that, to assemble the funding, to assemble the team, to assemble the course, to assemble all the best teachers that would be willing to come here. And that required all the other work that we did last year, because the Bitcoiners don't trust, they verify, right? So they watched for proof, for verification that everything was Bitcoin country and this was real before they would commit to, getting behind Cubo Plus. But obviously we now have a one of its kind program. We just finished the first 3 months, almost 3 months of it, which was more the philosophical and, theoretical side of Bitcoin, introducing the first 40 or so students. And that's what Saifedean and Moose came here for, to lecture them for 3 hours. And then he sat with them for 2 hours over lunch, and they were super happy. And he spent a lot of time with them. And it was remarkable watching the students, by the way, because I didn't have this sort of expectation of seeing all of the students who, I think about 30 showed up for the lecture, and they did not fidget on their phones. They weren't fidgeting at all. They were totally engaged. They were listening to every word he said. They were absorbing it. You could see that all. So it gave me a lot of hope.
Yeah, when I was there observing, the students were, very quiet, and I didn't know what was going on in their heads. And then at lunch, I had a chance to talk to a lot of them, and they're like just gushing with everything they just heard, and very exciting, and they're so hopeful, and they like the fact that Saifedean came here, and they have a high respect for him. So that was fantastic. And as far as people coming here now, we had some anecdotal evidence about this. So a friend of ours was saying that he was flying into the airport in El Salvador, and for the first time he remembered, the plane had to circle the airport a few times because it was so congested. So they give you an idea of the activity that's flowing in.
Yeah, and as soon as I go to look for the headline, Max always comes to a hard stop. But I wanted to turn to, because while you're seeing all the evidence that we worked in 2022, that we put together and assembled this amazing, Bitcoin country, this Citadel, this orange-pilled nation, this total maximalist nation. I wanted to turn to in the rest of the world outside there, because it's a very odd experience living here and being here and being content creators, because for the past, since 2003 we met, 2006, 2005 we started making content. Right, actually we started right away in 2003. I remember now we have that podcast, but we've always been in that fiat world, and that the decaying world that was at the end days, right? The end of the US dollar empire. So we've always been amidst it and reporting what we saw around us, and the headlines were reflecting what was around us. But now we're in this weird fantasy land of a Bitcoin Citadel. We're inside the Citadel, and you see the headlines from outside the Citadel, and they're crazy. They don't, they seem crazier now than they did when we were there. Because
they seem unbelievable.
Yes.
It seems when you read some of these things that are going on in cities and in communities in the United States, for example, or elsewhere around the world, it seems so depraved and so catastrophic and so worrisome that, is this actually happening? Can we actually believe some of these things that are happening? And here we are inside the Citadel, inside El Salvador, and it just seems, by contrast, to be even more startling. And at some point, you're like, maybe we shouldn't leave this island. We need to just stay here on this island.
No, but I mean, the thing is, you assume, I guess you just get used to the fact that, you think everybody has the same sort of reality, that it's a reality that every day gets better than the last day. that there's so much hope and positivity that you're building stuff, you assume that, everybody else sees that and understands what's happening here. You see the data that like hash rate is hitting all-time high. So Bitcoin is growing stronger. You see, the halving is coming in less than a year now. You see Saifedean come here. You see the explosion of his positive headlines about that. And then you go onto Twitter and you see a headline like this. This guy, Kodiak's, tweeted this about the headline. He said, CEO cannot be reached. Blockchain hilarity ensues. Like, this is so crazy. I read it and I could see that they were words and I could understand each word, but I didn't understand this reality that people create these things, engage in these things, buy these things, speculate in these things, and there's some sort of community around it, because it is. I guess I'll read this because it's so messed up. In the past 2 days, the multi-chain protocol has experienced multiple issues due to unforeseeable circumstances. The team has done everything possible to maintain the protocol running, but we are currently unable to contact CEO Zhao Jun and obtain the necessary server access for maintenance. And then it goes on in a catalog of catastrophe, and they list these like 12 or 13 obscure tokens on these various chains that are affected by this. And
it's like deja vu meets a horror film.
Yeah.
It's a horror film where the sinkhole keeps happening over and over again. And I hate sinkholes, right? I have a fear of sinkholes. And I dream about sinkholes, that they're just going to open up. And I'm going to just fall into these sinkholes. When I see the news and I see, in Indonesia or somewhere, a sinkhole opened up. And there's sinkholes in the ocean even. They just open up. They swallow everything. It's like, wow, these poisonous projects, they're like sinkholes. They just open up underneath people, and they
net
just
worth,
gobble
underneath their net worth, and just suck it
underneath
in.
their net worth. And they get rug pulled, right? And a rug pull, what's a rug pull? It's like a sinkhole.
Yeah.
And they just disappear. And it happens over and over and over again. It doesn't seem to be any end to it.
But because my background is film, it's also a great horror film like Halloween or Friday the 13th happens. And then there's an echo of these repeats down through the chain of down to Z-list, straight to video sort of films.
There was Jaws, and then by 3 or 4 years later, there was 20 or 40 knockoffs of Jaws, and they get worse and worse and worse. That's actually Jaws started, it's like the king of schlock, because it was like a big rubber shark, right? And those are the movies of the 50s and 60s, big, the 50-foot woman, the tomato, the attack.
Remember the tomato that was rolling around and killing people?
Yeah. So Spielberg, brought it to high art with Jaws, and then it regressed back to these tomatoes that were stalking and killing people. But this also brought me down an interesting rabbit hole of what people dream about around the world. And in different countries, the most often dream is different. And in North America and all over the world, one of the most common dreams people have is that their teeth fall out. Mm-hmm. I've never had that dream.
I think it's a control thing, right? I think that's what they say.
Yeah.
I had that dream once.
No, your teeth falling out.
Yeah. But 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
Maybe 60, 70 years ago.
I have the recurring sinkhole dream. And then another one.
No way. You dream about
I have it.
You have a walking dream.
Well, what's happening now?
You have a phobia.
Well, I have that dream. And then another one is snakes. That's the thing. I think that's
really
understandable.
Why? I don't have a fear of snakes.
I think people, I think it's in our DNA, right? Going back to, that we have a fear of snakes because they're scary and they kill people. I'm
afraid of spiders because I saw a spider once in Los Angeles in my apartment, and I was looking. It looked weird, and I went close, and I swear it had these eyeballs and was looking at me. And
eyeballs? Yeah. The spider with an eyeballs that was looking at you.
There was something scary. Mackerel. I thought. And I killed it, and I was then I felt bad, it was going to possess me or something. I don't know. I was
it's like those ragdoll eyeballs that kind of go up
and down. Yeah. It was like I got up close to it because it looked so weird, and I went right up to it.
It's
really eyeballs went like that.
Is those kitty cat clocks where it's like a black and white kitty clock and the tail goes back and forth and sort of the eyes? Mm-hmm. For some reason, it just freaks me out whenever I see one of those clocks.
I don't blame you. It should freak you out.
It's so odd. And then, so another one is lice. Apparently people have different countries. They dream of lice. I guess it's a recurring dream that people have.
I've never even seen lice. What the heck does it like? What? How would you know how to dream about lice if you've never seen it?
It seems like a strange dream, doesn't it?
What does it look like?
Yeah.
But speaking of bad dreams,
Yeah.
there's also yet another Richard Hart, a rug pull. Like
What?
they had this pulse chain thing. I don't know, hex collapse, and now pulse chain collapse in this past week, 2 weeks. And again, like these are the different things. And when you're doing a nation state, when you're building a citadel, there's one thing out there. If I see 100% it's true. People love to get rugged. They want to get rugged. They need to get rugged. It's like an S&M thing. Like, can you stop people, men mostly, from going to a dominatrix and getting spanked or tied up and, whatever happens there? You can't, right? But people do the same with these coins. They want to, they hate themselves. They want to be poor. They want to ruin everything. They want to be humiliated by some fat ass guy. Like that's what they want. And so go ahead, go do that somewhere else. I'm not going to stop you, but I don't want, like, that's the end, those are the end days of fiat, right?
So you're saying shitcoins are a form of kink?
Yes. At this point, they are a form of kink. You have to say that, right? Because it's obvious you're going to get rugged. So you're doing it for kink. You're doing it for, there's a lot of forum boards where guys like to, make fun of each other. Some are incel boards, some are other, like they'd like to talk about how much of a loser they are. And this is part of their shtick. I don't know. Like there's a lot of weird.
Shitcoin fetishists.
Shitcoin fetishists. Yes, you want to be a loser, and it builds a community. Some communities, like, they form gangs and they feel like a brotherhood and respect for each other. And these communities are similar gangs of losers, right? They bond over how much of a loser they are. Like, I lost everything. I only lost 75%. Like, I'm not as much as a loser as you are. Like, this is a competitive and, but it's also a community. They feel like a commonality, a connection with their fellow loser.
They're shitcoin coprophagists.
Yeah, close to it, but they like relishing in it. So anyway, like, that's out there and people want to do that.
Yeah.
But do you want to build a loser nation? Like, nobody sets out to say, hey, like, they all want to be, the revolution, the enlightenment, the Renaissance. They want to build a great citadel, right? You don't go like, how can we build a nation of the biggest losers who have no hope and will just get fat, sniff fentanyl? How do you even take fentanyl? What do they do with it? Sniff, inject? Like, what is it?
Well, if it's on lightly braised with a dry white wine.
Is it keto?
It's definitely keto. And then you follow that up with maybe a soup of apricot and a lovely Riesling.
That's not keto.
Fentanyl gourmet approach. If you go to Harry and David's Fentanyl, they'll ship you right from Seattle fresh picked fentanyl berries.
Did you see the insane headline from Elizabeth Warren about fentanyl?
Let's hear Liz Warren's latest insane headline.
Well, she wants to. She failed on all the other attempts to stop Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So now she says that we need to shut down Bitcoin and crypto because they are funding the fentanyl trade. Like, the fentanyl trade is like what I'm saying. Those groups of losers who love getting rug pulled, right? Fentanyl is the end stage of the US dollar. Like, it birthed the US dollar and the Triffin dilemma that triggered the deindustrialization of the heartland of America, the Rust Belt now. Like, that is what led to the fentanyl overdose crisis. The United States is the only place in the world that has it. And it's for a reason, because it's the end stage. It is the exact direct consequence of the US dollar. So it has nothing to do with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a direct result of the US dollar as well. But on the other end, like, there's a quasar going out one side of creating new life, and a new
Wow,
universe.
that's beautiful.
On the other side, there's a black hole, and that's the fentanyl, that's the US dollar, that's the derivatives, that's the debt, that's the QE, that's the CBDCs, that's all that stuff that's the black hole side. And the Bitcoin is the side that is all the new life being born out of a great light.
People aren't buying fentanyl with quote unquote crypto. They're knocking out their teeth, and they're getting fentanyl with using teeth as a currency.
Yes.
Or, depraved sex acts in the middle of a highway to get their fentanyl fixed. They're not like downloading a wallet.
That's where those overlap, what is that? The overlap charts they do of the circles.
The Venn diagram.
The Venn diagram of knocking out their teeth to get some fentanyl. It mixes with the people that like to get rugged. Like there's a lot of people out there who are the same. Like there's an overlap there between those groups of people.
I don't know if anyone remembers this, but do you remember Mad Libs? It's
yes.
like a book you get at the store. This is how we had fun back in the 70s. Yeah. And it was just, blank, a story with some blanks where you fill in the words and one person fills in words and they don't know what the story is. And then you read it back and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's like Johnny had a cup of blank and you just say, okay, thumbs up. So it's like Liz Warren, when I hear her talk, it's like Mad Libs. Like she'll just like, crypto is, and there's a blank. And then Liz Warren will be like, fentanyl.
Yeah.
No, the war. Like she just fills in anything she wants to. And then when you listen to her speak, it's that same humorous kind of reaction. Like, it doesn't make any sense, bitch.
She has the worst. The way she talks. No, like that whiny. It's like whiny. So when she's whining and like saying stupid stuff, it's like.
She's like Miss Crabtree from The Little Rascals.
It makes it harder to laugh at her. Like the stuff she says is batshit crazy, right?
Right.
But she says it in such a whiny voice that it's so annoying, and you just, you want her to be one of those people selling their teeth out in the
we had a gym
intersection.
teacher back in elementary school that we named Miss O'Flattyfoot. I don't know why, but she was.
It was such innocent days back then, Miss O'Flattyfoot.
Like there's just this. She wore this cardigan sweater and sneakers and like this old skirt she had in high school from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
She's like Liz Warren. She's like an elementary school phys ed teacher who's on fentanyl. I mean, she's projecting, isn't she? She should be looking for fentanyl. She craves fentanyl. She's obviously a fentanyl addict.
Well, that's the end stage of everything there. So. I want to say also, like, what? I wore all black today, and I was like, I added it up when I was looking through my closet and looking at all the clothes, and I was like, oh, I have that orange shirt, I have this white shirt, I have this striped shirt, and I tried on a few outfits, and then I realized I got to the point finally that I'm just going to do that thing that Steve Jobs did. It all made sense. Like, it suddenly made sense. It just snapped. And I was like, because I think I have spent 3 years, 7 months, 12 days, and 16 hours. I counted it up, like looking for clothes, trying on various outfits. So I've wasted almost 4 years of my life, like just trying on different outfits.
This is the tyranny of Barbie.
Yeah.
You're taught at a young age that this clothes stuff really matters.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point, the Steve Jobs moment, where you realize, oh, it's the tyranny of Barbie. I don't need all these freaking clothes. I'm going to go Steve Jobs. I'm going to go one outfit, and that's all I'm gonna wear. Or it's like Stacy Cash, right? The sister of Johnny Cash. It's like, I'm gonna wear black until people stop losing money on shitcoins.
Well, it's that topic that Saifedean made famous, which is low time preference.
Yeah.
And high time preference encourages you to waste a lot of your time looking through clothes.
Yeah.
And it's pointless. So I've decided I'm going to just choose one outfit from now on, and every single episode from now on, going forward from this episode number 71, I'm just going to wear the same outfit. But I have to make sure I look as good as possible. Maybe I don't look good in black. Who knows? It's
the black always works. A little black dress, black. It's always worked. It's very dramatic.
That's the thing, is it could look good in the day and it looks good at night. That's why you wear black, because it looks good at a fancy tie thing.
Totally.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess I'll just wear black.
Yeah, black is the new black.
It's hard to do in the tropics, though.
Well, yeah, because you're absorbing all that heat.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're going to fry like a little papoose on a grill.
Yeah.
And plus the high altitude and the humidity, you're going to be on the street like wishing you were
Doing
on
the
fentanyl.
I'm in the fentanyl business.
I'm wearing black and I'm wearing 5,000 degrees and I can't breathe in this altitude.
You know, Elon Musk is back at the richest person in the world, and they were, you know, those Democrats. I was call them left wing. It's hard to say. Like they're more like a corporate thing, right? They're a gang of like of the like. You have the gang of losers, the rug pulled losers. You have the fentanyl abusers in the traffic jam, like shaking down, selling their teeth for some more fentanyl hit. Then you have whatever. All those old people in Congress, like that Dianne Feinstein,
Oh my God.
Feinstein being rolled in, like it's crazy.
Dr. Strangelove.
It's so weird. But then they were those people were all making fun of Elon Musk because one of the newspapers this weekend like calculated that. So what did he bought Twitter for 40 billion. That is only worth a third of that. So, I mean, you do the math out there because I'm not going to bother with the math.
I did it. He worth it for like 44, 45 billion. And so it's really worth 15 billion.
And it's really worth 15 billion. But the thing is, at the same time, their favorite billionaire, one of their favorite billionaires, Jeff Bezos, spent like $500 million on a yacht. To me, it makes much more sense that you would buy Twitter instead, because that is a sort of legacy that lasts forever. Well, look at it. You know, I was thinking with the, you know, the Bitcoin Citadel that we're building here and the Saifedean arriving here and all these excellent companies. It's like that Lindy effect, right? The Lindy effect has happened to Bitcoin, but it's also happened with our friendships and relationships. So our friendships with Bitfinex, with Jack Mallers, with, you know, Will Reeves, with Saifedean, like we met him back in 2011. So you survive all these cycles of boom and bust and Bitcoin and, you know, those years that go by, and it's more likely to last. Like it lasts longer. It's more likely to continue to last. And so what we have here is the Lindy effect, Max.
The Lindy effect as it relates to inertia and
Yes.
Elon Musk overpaying for Twitter, but
Yes.
still being the world's richest man, which tells you that his portfolio of assets are hitting new all-time highs
Yes.
in terms of what his net worth is. So
Yes.
the fact that Twitter might be down $30 billion from what he paid for it doesn't really add up to a hill of beans in this crazy world we live in. And 5 to 10 years from now, it's probably going to be worth 300 to 400 billion, if not $1 trillion, because he's rebuilding it from scratch. The people who left it behind left a really stinking pile of dog crap that he had to completely re-architect, rebrand, and redo from the very beginning. And it's a better product. It's obviously a better product, and it's having a huge impact on free speech in a very positive way.
It's historic. He's leaving a mark on history, and that is more permanent. That lasts longer. Like if you could, you know, nobody will remember Jeff Bezos, okay? Nobody. In 100 years from now, nobody will remember him. 100 years from now, they're more likely now to remember Elon Musk. Not only because he's, you know, close to the richest ever, which was, I guess, was it Rockefeller? Who was there was the richest guy ever in America, one of the Rockefellers or somebody like that. And he's close to what that guy was. And he's bought something that will last longer. So if it lasts longer into the future, it's going to keep his name into the future.
Yeah, Rockefeller was of the robber barons. He's considered to be the richest of the robber barons. He's also considered to be the biggest philanthropist of the robber barons.
Yeah.
And he made his bones on the oil industry, where he invented vertical integration, where you own the distribution, the drilling, the refining, the retail sales. And that was one of Rockefeller's contribution to business. Then, of course, he was famously broken up into like 30 different companies by Teddy Roosevelt and the trust busters. And then his net worth doubled because he owned a huge stake in every single one of those breakup companies. And they themselves went on to make huge new all-time highs. So roughly equivalent between Rockefeller and Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. It's about the same. In current dollars, Rockefeller's fortune is roughly $200 billion. And so are these guys. And, you know, to your point, my favorite CEO of history is the mouth from the South, Ted Turner, who was very outspoken. He created cable news network, CNN, and he made a huge difference to media in America. And he was somebody that used the power of the chairman's office and the CEO's office to do socially changing things. And then, he famously bought AOL, America Online, right at the top of the dot-com era, and wiped out probably 60 or 70% of his net worth.
Yeah.
A bigger drawdown on his net worth than, Elon Musk
even investors in this Pulse chain or one of these
he
other
rug-pulled himself, Ted Turner, and he lost clout at that time.
Yeah.
And CNN sadly went a horrible way. But I think I hear what you're saying there, that he does represent more of the robber barons of the early 20th century, who, like Carnegie, the Carnegies, and the Rothschilds.
But even like they have like a nice museum or a nice house and a nice thing, and Bezos has a nice boat and stuff like that. But what are the amazing houses that Lorenzo the Magnificent had? Medici. Do you remember like how much money he made or how many houses he flipped?
No, I only remember his legacy.
You remember his legacy, right? You remember, and how much did he lose on his investments into Michelangelo or Da Vinci?
Right.
Like how much did he lose on the David? Like how much? Like and how much did he gain? Like how do you put a price tag on what he left behind?
Well, there was an interesting dynamic going back to the Renaissance, I think, between, let's say, the emerging capitalism of that mid-millennial period versus the church, because Florence was kind of in opposition to the controlling factor of the church, and part of the way that they exercised their independence was by flipping the finger at the church, by commissioning artists who had imagery that went against the orthodoxy of the church. And so he was what you would call a billionaire with an attitude, and that's clearly Elon Musk. He's got an attitude.
It's a super low time preference. This is the thing, and we've been talking about the whole episode, is like leading up to the fact that people can mock Elon Musk for creating a legacy. People can mock El Salvador for Bitcoin paper losses. But in 100 years from now, 200 years from now, will they be talking about that person who left? Or will they be talking about the person who left behind a legacy and altered and changed the epoch in culture?
I totally agree with you. I famously made fun of Elon on stage at Bitcoin Miami like 2 years ago, and
well, he deserved that because he was telling people to buy Dogecoin.
Yeah.
And the point is, like I said, there's like whole groups, unions, assemblies of people that gather to be rugged. So he was giving them pleasure. I agree. Like he was serving some purpose.
He was a
with
dominatrix for the Doge community. They helped them experience a rug pull.
Yes, whatever these guys who gather in these little chat rooms, they like to lose, and he was helping them be the biggest losers in the room because they're competing to be the biggest loser, and that's the truth. Yeah. So like he made somebody the biggest loser, and that satisfied some urge in that guy.
Well, it does fit with the profile of a gambler and who's a gambleaholic, who has a problem, who the thing about losing versus winning is that losing is a much more deeply felt emotion.
Yes.
And so people become emotion-aholics, essentially. And the only way to satisfy that emotional addiction is by losing. That's the classic gambleaholic.
Or hitting bottom, right? Like you get to the point of hitting bottom. Like it's not like a pretty thing. So there's people, that's where they want to go. That's the road they're on, is to the bottom.
That's like alcohol or drugs or gambling. You get addicted to it, and it does take you to that bottom. It takes you to a place where you are on death's doorstep and you have to decide what you want to do. And some people reverse their lives and they come back from it. Others, but shitcoins are an instrument to feed a mental illness and the addiction of that type of degen.
Well, well, nobody wants to do the proof of work.
Yeah.
Because the point is, it's hard to be a winner because people laugh at you the whole way. People tell you can't do it. You doubt yourself. You put yourself out there. You're saying, I'm going to be a winner. I'm going to get to the top. I'm going to finish first. I'm going to do this. And everybody's jeering at you the whole way, saying you're never going to do it, because they're projecting their own fear and their own doubts and their own more comfort levels in being a loser. So that's the vast majority of people are losers, right? That's just obviously nature. Like, look at history. You only remember a couple hundred, like 200, 300, 400, 500 people from the prior to 500 years ago. So that's because everybody else wasn't worth knowing.
Well, it's tough to go on your own path, for sure.
Yeah.
And so something that came up in the last couple of weeks, which is one of the very first books I ever read as I started to embark on a career of entrepreneurialism, is, the book that people whisper and say, you got to read this book, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is a self-help book. And it came up again recently. And for the last 45 years, people still talk about this book, and it's a slim book. And one of the things in this book, and I believe, if I'm not wrong, that this is actually in this book, but if you sit down and you imagine talking to smart, famous people from the past, they will essentially talk back to you.
Oh yeah.
Like you can be in a room and you can say, I'm with Aristotle.
You can do that now, though, for real, with AI.
Exactly.
You could input all of the dialogues of Socrates, of Aristotle, Plato, and then have a conversation with them.
Right. So in this book, Think and Grow Rich, that's an exercise that people use to get into that mindset of not being a loser, of breaking out and, going toward their goals. But now with AI, you can actually do it. In the physical world, because you can program the AI to have this conversation in the voice of Plato or Aristotle or Steve Jobs. Like, they have this thing online now where Steve Jobs is talking to Elon Musk, and they're having a conversation,
wow.
AI generated about stuff. So it's we refer to this this thread many times because it's hard to distinguish what phase of the simulation we're in. Are we right in the pre-collapse and this is the end, or is this the beginning of something?
Yeah. Well, I think like how rapidly AI is advancing, this might be the rug pull for us. I think we're going to be rugged. Humanity is about to be rugged, because I think, when there's a rug pull, there are all the signs become more and more apparent that they're about to rug pull you. Like, every single rug pull, they say, oh, I should have known as soon as he tweeted like 4 or something like that. And so, like, right now, AI, like, why is it exposing itself to us like this? Unless it's about to like fucking rug us. Yeah. Sorry for that swear.
The signs are there.
Yeah.
Like your refrigerator is talking to you suddenly. And it's not a dream. It's
like Plato.
It actually, your toaster is reciting Shakespeare. You're talking to Plato in the kitchen. You walk in on this, and we're trying to make breakfast. And you realize, this could be end days. The sign of AI-assisted collapse. But speaking of collapse,
I think this episode is about to be rugged.
I think we're going to rug ourselves on this episode.
Exactly.
And
I like the new set because it's, while we were away, it shrank, or else our minds got bigger and everything around us seemed smaller. Or this is part of the whole simulation being rugged. Like, there's
this podcast has always been big. It's the table that got small.
I like it smaller like this.
Really?
Size doesn't always matter, but in this case, it's better to be small.
Okay, great. And on that note, we're going to say adios and bye, y'all.